Top 10 Crimes That Went Viral After a Podcast. Welcome back to Creepshow, where we examine the sinister and unsettling aspects of actual crime. Real crime has exploded into popular culture. Though stories of murder and dread had always been limited to a narrower audience, people have always had a sick attraction for the macabre. True crime is now freely available, as are its admirers. The advent of the podcast helps to explain some of its appeal. Podcasts, which combine iPod with broadcast, are audio downloads in episode form. Podcasts' adaptability allows you to listen to gory murder stories with ads for home hair color while driving to the gym or office. Real crime is now really popular. From infamous serial killers to lesser-known crimes with a twist, fans' tastes have changed. Podcasters have grabbed this niche in the market with headline-grabbing success. The ghoulish feature of these podcasts bothers some listeners, but others say they are a good way to draw attention to personal safety and honor neglected victims. The 5 most well-known podcasts whose narrative illuminated the internet will be discussed in our video today. Number 10. To Live and Die in Los Angeles. Living in Los Angeles, young starlet Adea Shabani vanished in February 2018. Last seen on CCTV, Adea was leaving her flat with lover Chris Spots. She asked a buddy where to get red candles by text and never heard from again. After her family engaged private investigator Jaden Brandt, he contacted Rolling Stone writer Neil Strauss in an effort to get case coverage. 3 weeks after Adea disappeared, Strauss started real-time recording the inquiry. The podcast surfaced a year later. We find in the first episode that Spots is armed and on run from cops. An account of a violent relationship, lies, and the Albanian mafia emerges. In another episode, the guys find out Spots shot himself following a police pursuit. At last, Adea's body is found, and blunt force trauma is determined to be her cause of death. While Strauss and Brandt have access to Spots' Google accounts, the LAPD are happy he is Adea's killer. These days, they think he did not act alone. The podcast downloaded 15 million times, and the creators are going over fresh material. Number 9. Someone Knows Something, Season 1. Age 5, Adrian McNaughton disappeared on a fishing vacation to Holmes Lake, Eastern Ontario, in 1972. Growing up in the same town as Adrian, filmmaker David Ridgen created the CBC radio program in 2016. He went back over psychic readings from the past and witness accounts alongside the family. He asked a forensic artist to sketch Adrian's possible appearance today and searched Holmes Lake using cadaver hounds. He also visited the isolated settlement of Clyde Forks for hints and tracked a sighting of a Dodge automobile. A search of Holmes Lake turned up a tiny bit of rubber, maybe from a child's sneaker, when the podcast stopped. A deeper search turned up what looked to be a human tooth. Police accepted the samples and promised to investigate the Dodge automobile. Tests revealed the tooth was not human and the rubber was not identifiable. With David's cooperation, Adrian's family is organizing another lake search. Number 8. Dr. Death. One respected neurosurgeon was Christopher Dunch. Having thrived in medical school, he was working at the Dallas Medical Center in the early 2010s. Dunch, meanwhile, was also living a well-constructed covert life marked by drug and alcohol abuse. When spinal surgeon Dr. Robert Henderson was requested to do corrective surgery on 2 of Dunch's patients, the truth finally surfaced. Of the 38 patients he operated on during a 2-year period, 31 were left crippled or badly damaged, and 2 died from surgical complications. Medical writer Laura Bile tracked the narrative and created the Dr. Death podcast. She talks to previous patients of Dunch in it and very vividly details the suffering and damage his poor operations caused. Launched in 2018, Dr. Death ranked number 1 on iTunes. One of the first jail terms ever handed for medical negligence, the real Dr. Death was arrested in 2015 and sentenced to life imprisonment in 2017. Number 7. Finding Maura Murray. 21-year-old Maura Murray was a nursing student. She packed her stuff and emailed her professor in February 2004 that she was leaving town because of a family death. She crashed her automobile on a bend that evening on an icy road near Woodsville, New Hampshire. Witnesses said she turned away any help offers, but she had disappeared when the cops showed up. Though the nearby forests were investigated, Maura was nowhere to be seen. She had misled her college on the family death, and nobody knew where she was headed. Without leads, months passed, and the case grew cold. Using their investigation of the case, authors Tim Polari and Lance Reinstierna created a podcast in 2015. Seeking to find out what happened to Maura, they untangled her conflicted life of theft charges, drunk driving, and doomed love romances over many episodes. They then started filming a movie in which they followed up on claimed sightings by visiting Canada. The case is the subject of numerous websites and forums loaded with theories. The basement of an unoccupied house close to the crash scene was searched in April 2019. Although no evidence pertaining to Maura could be discovered, her family now regards her as dead. Number 6. The Dark, Season 2. A gunman shot 4 employees dead when he broke into the Tardy Furniture Shop in Winona, Mississippi, 1996. The murders shocked the little town, and shortly after, local resident Curtis Flowers was taken under arrest. Flowers had briefly worked at the store but quit after a conflict. 1997 saw his murder trial. 5 more times following that. Found convicted and condemned to death at his 6th trial in 2010. Investigator Madeline Baran started researching the peculiar situation. The juries for the 6 cases consisted mostly or totally of white jurors. Curtis Flowers is of African-American descent. Baran started looking at white man District Attorney Doug Evans. Evans has a history of excluding black jurors from trials, according her team. Investigating Flowers' case further turned up missing evidence and bogus confession narratives. Season 2 of the hit podcast In the Dark started with their discoveries. After a year of investigation on the matter, Baran's lawyers applied the fresh data they came upon. The U.S. Supreme Court accepted an appeal in November 2018. Ironically, Flowers might have to go through a record 7th DA Doug Evans trial should the conviction be overturned. Number 5. Dirty John. Deborah Newell felt John Meehan was the ideal man when she met him on a dating service. Their connection progressed fast, much as Deborah's daughters would have objected. John said he was a doctor but never appeared to have much money. Although the couple moved in together, John objected to having his name on the lease. When Deborah's family voiced concerns, he became enraged. John's dubious past started to be untangled by Deborah's nephew Shad. He had misled people about being an anesthesiologist and spent time in jail on drug charges. The family then learned about his life as a con artist with past extortion and stalking. 3 women obtained restraining orders against him, and dating sites abound in warnings about him. Deborah severed off all ties to John, yet he attacked her following her daughter Tara. John perished during the fight. The tale made headlines in the neighborhood and drew interest from LA Times writer Christopher Goffard. In October 2017, he turned the story of Dirty John, a moniker from college, into a 6-part podcast. The tale of the charming fraudster attracted audiences, and it has downloaded over 10 million times. Now, a TV drama, documentary, and book all center on Dirty John. Number 4. S-Town. John B. McLemore, an Alabama native, sent Brian Reed, the producer of podcast This American Life, a series of emails 2012. To look at an unresolved murder, he asked Brian to travel to Woodstock, his hometown, sometimes known as Sh-Town. Intrigued, Brian visited John, and his account turned into the S-Town podcast. John was a reclusive person with great intelligence and horological or time expertise. Living in a rundown house with his 88-year-old mother, Mary Grace, he had created a sophisticated maze in the backyard with a buddy, Tyler. Brian discovers shortly that there was no murder, but he keeps being sucked into John's small-town conspiracy theory and local rumor world. In a startling turn of events, John kills himself. In the wake of this, Brian hears tales about a hidden gold cache Tyler feels is rightly his. Launched in 2017, the podcast downloaded 10 million times in 4 days. Visitors expecting to view the well-known maze John left behind have been flooding Woodstock. His cousins have sued the creators of S-Town. They assert there was no permission given, and the podcast invaded John's right to privacy. Tyler is waiting for trial on stealing and trespassing. Number 3. Up and Vanished, Season 1. Payne Lindsay, an Atlanta director, sought an unresolved crime to highlight in a documentary. He came into the tale of former beauty queen and instructor Tara Grinstead, who disappeared in 2005. Tara had not shown up over the years. No arrests had been made. Lindsay journeyed to Ocilla, Georgia, to investigate the riddle more closely. In August 2016, he converted his research into a podcast. The program went on to acquire 240 million downloads, and 2 individuals were arrested and tried based on its popularity. Lindsay reports from Tara's house in the first episode, where the cops discovered no evidence of forced entrance. A broken necklace and 1 latex glove provided the only hints to follow. Lindsay set out to chat to the locals, most of which were first apprehensive. To find the truth, he tried to sift years of town rumors. This brought authorities back to the investigation, and in February 2017, Ryan Duke, one of Tara's former students, was taken into custody for her killing. Later arrested for trying to hide her death, his companion Bo Dukes was found guilty in March 2019. Ryan Duke's murder trial is still under process. Number 2. The Teacher's Pet. From Sydney, Australia, Lynette Dawson was a 33-year-old mother. In January 1982, she disappeared without notice, leaving behind her 2 small children and husband Chris, a schoolteacher. Their marriage was unhappy. Chris had been having an affair with former student Joanne Curtis, who quickly moved into the family house. Lynette was not reported missing for 6 weeks, and Chris said she had become involved in a cult. Lynette was ruled deceased by coroners in 2001 and 2003, probably from murder, but no charges were taken. Australian writer Hedley Thomas returned to the cold case in May 2018 using his investigative podcast, The Teacher's Pet. His studies revealed a pattern of grooming and underage sex among students in northern Sydney schools Chris Dawson had worked in. Millions of listeners were gripped when family members and fresh witnesses stepped forward with their worries about Lynette. Downloaded more than 28 million times the podcast resulted in fresh witness testimony for police, and Chris Dawson was arrested in December 2018 and is scheduled to stand trial for Lynette murder. In an effort to maintain objectivity among possible jurors, the publisher of the podcast, the Australian newspaper, has lately deleted all 16 episodes. Despite forensic investigations of Lynette's previous house and swimming pool, no evidence of the woman now identified to millions of listeners has ever been located. Number 1. Serial, Season 1. Found horribly dead in Baltimore in 1999, Hae Min Lee was a high school student. That might have been the end of the narrative when her ex-boyfriend Adnan Syed was imprisoned for murder. Campaigning for Adnan's release, family friend Rabia Chaudhry contacted writer Sarah Koenig. Koenig agreed to check the matter out. Her discovery was a convoluted puzzle of contradicting timelines, mobile phone records, young witnesses, and long-forgotten high school friendships. Strong ensemble of personalities surfaced, including the Best Buy parking lot. Serial has garnered hundreds of millions of downloads since the riveting narrative arc captured public attention. Over some internet sites, there is still furious discussion over who killed Hae. Adnan was turned down for a fresh trial in March 2019. 1010 Koenig is still not sure who she believes killed Hae Min Lee. And that concludes our dive into the world of true crime podcasts that captivated audiences and helped bring attention to long-forgotten or unresolved cases. From the mysterious disappearance of Maura Murray to the groundbreaking revelations of Serial, these stories remind us of the power of investigative journalism and the profound impact it can have on real lives. If you enjoyed this countdown, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more unsettling yet intriguing explorations into the darkest corners of human nature. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or if there are any other true crime stories you'd like us to cover. Stay safe, stay curious, and until next time, keep your ears open and your mind sharp. This is Creepshow, signing off.